Hi there. Welcome to the next lesson in the Next Gen Guide to English Grammar. This lesson is about the verb to be. It's one of the most used verbs in English, but it's also one of the most complicated in terms of its rules and how we use it. So it's critical to know the basics if we really want to have a good understanding of English grammar in general. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand and explain how we use the verb to be in the present simple tense. So for example, you should know the difference between there is a lot of books and there are a lot of books. Which one is correct and why? As we've already discussed in previous lessons, sentences in English need a subject and a verb. So the subject and verb have a special relationship and have to be together at all times. They both do a special job in the sentence, but to do their individual job properly, they need the other one to be there. It's kind of like a working relationship, but in this relationship, the subject is the boss, and the verb has to change itself to keep the boss happy. So when we use the verb to be in the present simple, which form we use depends on the subject that it goes with. If the subject is I, the verb to be becomes am. I am or I'm. If the subject is you, a we or a they, to be becomes are. You are or you're, we are or we're, they are or they're. If the subject is a he, a she or an it, then to be becomes is. He is or he's, she is or she's, it is or it's. Now here, every subject that we're using is a pronoun. We generally use pronouns to act as a replacement for the name of the thing that we're talking about. So for example, instead of saying John, Richard and I are students, we might say we're students. And instead of saying Julia is on the phone, we might say she's on the phone. So these pronouns, I, you, we, they, he, she and it, cover every type of subject that we can have. So if you're not sure which form of to be is correct, simply look at the subject of the sentence and decide which pronoun describes it. If we look at some example sentences like my t-shirt is clean and my socks are dirty, then we should be able to explain why one of the sentences uses to be in the form of is and the other uses are. In the first sentence, my t-shirt is clean, the subject, my t-shirt, is a single object. If we were to replace it with a pronoun, we would use it. And when the subject is it, be becomes is. Likewise, in the second sentence, the subject is my socks. Naturally, my socks are more than one, so the pronoun would have to be they. And when they is the subject, to be becomes are. If we go back to our lesson objectives, we had two example sentences. There is a lot of books and there are a lot of books. So as is the general rule, we look at the subject to determine which form of to be is correct. In these sentences, the subject is books, which, like socks in the previous example, is plural or more than one. So we describe them as they. So the second sentence is correct. There are a lot of books. Now, when it comes to this example, it may not be as clear-cut as it seems. We have there is, which we use for singular objects, and we have there are, which we use for groups. However, we also have theirs, which can be used for both singular and groups in informal English. So while there is a lot of books is undoubtedly not correct, the very similar sounding there's a lot of books is a sentence which is generally accepted as being correct in informal English. But if you're in a formal environment or writing a formal letter or email, then the general rule of always using are for groups applies.